Morning, chicos. How are you? It's a Sunday, the 12th of April. I'm back after a couple of weeks of rest and rejuvenation. As you know, I've had a third child, so I've been taking care of the little guy. It's been a wonderful moment. You see, I got the new dad energy. Look at me. Look at me. We're looking good, huh? So today I have a little discussion for you. I'm going a bit deeper into um, the acquisition that the Indian Air Force is trying to achieve for the last several years, several decades actually already. Since 2008, they've been trying to get over 126 fighter jets. The Indian Air Force would like to buy a huge number of these aircraft. They evaluated the Super Hornet, the Eurofighter, the Rafale, the Gripen, the F-16 Block 60, and many of these aircrafts, and found that I think it was the Rafale and the Eurofighter that were, let's say, the most capable at that point in time. But in the meantime, um, Rafale somehow became the lowest bidder. And then the Rafale was ordered, but in limited numbers because they decided it was too expensive at that time. Um, if I recall, they were requesting about 60% or 70% of the aircraft being made entirely in India, including a lot of technology transfer. Um, but somehow that deal, didn't really go through. They ended up buying 36 off the shelf, and now they have been negotiating for the last several years uh, to buy an additional 114 Rafales. They've cleared the purchase of it. So, I have an article here from Times by India, and this is from the 24th of March. So basically, India approves 114 Rafales, right? So they approve it financially. They're like, okay, let's go, let's get it done. And then the French do something that the French always do. Is, oh, we are going to change something. They are basically saying, okay, we do not want to give you any source codes. France fears Russian hands on fighter software through Brahmos integration. Now, for those who don't know what the Brahmos is, a little, sampler for you. It's considered the world's fastest supersonic cruise missile. It's based on the P-800 Onyx. It's been in service already for a long time, since at least the late 2000s, and it's been used actively, and it has managed to deal heavy destruction in Pakistan, for example, last year. This was this was in the Kirana Hills. This was in Pakistan. This was in Kirana Hills, uh, one of their strategic air bases, also known as Sarkoda, for those who don't know. And there's a whole bunch of mountainous bunkers over there. And one of those bunkers seems to have been the entrance point or a ventilation duct for the location where they store their nukes. So it is a proven system. It can target. It was quite instrumental in messing up the Pakistani air bases last year. I'm trying to find the video here, but let me get back to the Rafale. So the BrahMos is an Indian-Russian joint venture. It's majority Indian owned, but most of the missiles are made in India. But the technology does initially came from Russia. India indigenized a lot of parts of the BrahMos. Most of it is made locally, but Russia is a huge part of that program. Essentially, it's a Mach 3 supersonic cruiser that smacks you flying, I don't know, 5 to 10 meters off the ground. It has anti-ship, anti land attack variants, anti-ship variants, and as we saw recently from last year, bunker busting variants too. It seems. So it's a very potent weapon. The Indian Air Force operates it on the Sukhoi 30. The Sukhoi 30, for those who do not know, it's an absolute beast. It's perhaps, in my opinion, the most beautiful fighter jets. It's stunning in person. I've seen the Su-35 at the Paris Air Show in 2013. Fabulous beast. The ground shakes when it takes off. It's absolute. I love this plane. Okay, the Russians. This thing can do ballet in skies. Okay, it can do absolutely wonderful things in the skies. And as somebody who flies a lot on DCS, and we'll do this in one of these episodes, fly together, is that India initially bought about what is it, 40 aircraft, Su-30 Mach MK variants. They tried it, tested them out, and then they went in for a huge number of local manufacturing. So they produced over 272 of these fighter jets locally in India. Not only that, we additionally ordered another 12. And then they have 200, a lot of engines. The entire engine assembly of the AL-31FP engines are made in India. You see there are production facilities in Lucknow, Hyderabad, Nashik. And currently they're busy with a Super Sukhoi upgrade, which is ongoing, which will integrate BrahMos ER, which is a longer range variant of the BrahMos. The BrahMos currently has a range of about 400 to 450 kilometers. With the BrahMos ER, they expect to extend that range to about 800 kilometers, which is adding more standoff capability to the Sukhoi 30, which is absolutely potent. Keep in mind, these are weapons that can easily in a saturation mode, destroy something like a destroyer, a frigate. And if you fire enough of them, and it's possible with a combination of drones and BrahMos, you can inflict damage on carriers. That would require, of course, several missiles to overcome the air defenses, but it can be done. So it's a very potent system that India relies on. Not to mention, the Indians have managed to, and that's one of the amazing thing about Russian fighter jets, is that you can pretty much put any weapon on it. We have in India, we have integrated um, Indian weapons on them, Indian glide bombs, Indian runway destroying bombs. We have bunker busters. We have Israeli weapons on them. The Rock's ballistic missile fires from this weapon. Highly capable system. And so the Rafale is also extremely potent, but it's French. And they are playing hardball right now. And they're saying they will not give you access to the source code. Well, it makes sense. I understand it. But you see, India is trying to buy 114, right? India already has a fleet of 100 and so if you're looking at, right, 114 plus a fleet of 36 plus, I think the Indian Navy ordered 28. You're looking at 178 aircraft. At 178 aircraft, if you do not consider them to be a strategic partner enough to know that, you know what, we give you the source code access, we will work on it together to develop. But if you're being pig-headed, right, they deserve to lose this deal. Which is why today I would like to make the case that the Su-57 offer, which the Russians are offering to India, is a much better deal. We already have the ecosystem, we already have the factories where, with some additional jigs, with some additional changes in machinery and tooling, it's possible to convert these factories which already make which already make and maintain the MKI. Keep in mind, the same production factories also produce the Sukhoi 30 MKI, but the MKM version for the Malaysian Air Force, and the Malaysians are happy with them. And we provide the whole logistics for its spare parts and so forth. So India already has a very extensive architecture with the Russians. It makes sense for India to look at the Russian Su-57 as a very potent option. And the way I would do it is because India already has existing stockpiles of R-77s. We already have existing stockpiles of R-74s, I believe, and R-73s. We already have existing stockpiles of all kinds of Russian weapons which can be immediately strapped onto this topic. Not only that, it would come with all kinds of ability for us to integrate the kind of weapons that we want. And keep in mind, the latest M variant is currently being tested with the new engine. Obviously, India would get the new engine, not the old one, because the deal is not signed yet. India would absolutely push for a MKI, which is an Indian variant. Keep in mind, there's an Indian variant that has Indian mission computers. The MKI, for those who do not know, MKI Indian avionics, you will see that we have a whole bunch of things that are local on the Indian version. I'm trying to infographic, right? So you have, yeah, you see the entire set of things over here. Yeah, there it is. You have indigenous upgrade proposed equipment. We have flight data transfer unit, aviation clock, blah, 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 indigenous DMG, software defined radio, enhanced electronic suites, bigger, MFDs, AESA radar, that India will put its own AESA radar on it. So basically, India would try to get an extremely customized version that has a lot of local content, a lot of local possibilities. And that is very interesting because you see, the baseline Su-57 is a beast. For those who keep saying, "Oh, the Russians cannot make a fighter jet. Oh, it's so late," but take a look at it. It can already super cruise. Yes, it's better than the Rafale. It has a higher max speed. It's super maneuverable, much more maneuverable. But this one is, high agility. But the Russians, through the Su-35, have already demonstrated that they can kill targets over 180 kilometers. In Ukraine, they shot down, I believe, a MiG-29 at over 170 to 180 kilometers, highly potent missile. They have demonstrated that they can shoot down other flankers, other aircraft. F-16s have been shot down. So not necessarily by the R-37, but by, I believe, the S-400. So this Su-57 already has a lot of things going for it and fits better with the Indian system. Not to mention that it has internal weapons, while the you know the Rafale has a very potent Spectra electronic warfare system, very nice. It is mature, and the Su-57 is a lot more, it's still much more new. But of course, you have the Su-57, which has, um, the most interesting thing about the Su-57 remains the main nose radar, right? And then you have side-looking cheek radars, two smaller X-band AESA mounted on the side. So essentially, you have one, two, three, four L-band radars, right? So that's a fourth radar. Essentially, you're looking at, how much is it? Five main radars across the area. That gives you 200, roughly a view of 270 degrees, which is absolutely amazing for missile guidance. So once you fire your weapon, you're still able to notch, you're still able to get out of the potential lock of your enemy while continuing to um, dominate. You know, this is very interesting. Keep this in mind. These are X band and L band radars that can see a long way. And not to mention that it has the OLS 50, which is the IRST. The MKI has wonderful infrared search and track. So it just gets better for passive detections. And it is an extremely potent system. And the way we see it flies, it has plenty of thrust to weight ratio. Certainly with the new engine, it's going to be an absolute beast. An F-22, while it might be stealthier, but keep in mind the Su-57 versus F-22 if you look at the basic characteristics, you will see that the you know the stealth, it is stealthier. It might have a higher speed, but look at the range difference, right? Look at the range difference. That's almost 500-600 kilometers range, additional range, without refueling, without drop tanks and so forth. So the Su-57, it may not be as good as the Raptor, but it packs a potent punch, and it's more than enough for us, for the Indians, to be able to counter the Chinese threat or the Pakistani threat, especially if they order in the kind of numbers that they should be ordering. There was a time when I used to say the Rafale was a beautiful aircraft, nothing against it. It's performed really well last year as well. Um, but it is a strategically, it does not give India any strategic advantage when you buy the Rafale, because you're buying from France. They may call themselves independent, but actually they are fully integrated into the EU architecture. Their sovereignty is completely dominated by the EU. The French have no sovereignty almost. Keep that in mind. They have endless number of migrations. They have close to 120% debt to GDP ratio as of next year. So, and they, on the world stage, they are a declining nation. They do not have the capacity to be of strategic importance to India long run. India may have bought, submarines and things like this from France in the past, but France doesn't have add any major strategic value by being strategic partners to India. India doesn't need to rely on France for its defense. India doesn't need to rely, and France doesn't need to rely on India. So we're not gaining anything strategic. France has nothing else to sell apart from maybe aircraft and some wine and cheese and some machinery and products, things like this. But the Russians actually have nuclear fuel. Russians have endless amount of gas, huge amounts of oil. We can improve on that relationship and push back on the EU cabal. And it's very important to counterbalance, because the thing is, the EU continues to be a sore uh, loser as far as a country, as far as an area is concerned. It has continuously decreased GDP over the many years, while increasing bureaucracy, taxes, and absolute chaos when it comes to energy policy and war policy when it comes to Russia, Ukraine, and so forth. They have a thing for absolutely complicating everything way too much. It makes no sense for India to continue to rely on France. France is not a very strong country. French might have been strong. They might have been winning wars decades and centuries ago, but those days are over. France after World War II is essentially weakened and continues to be weakened. It is not a strong nation to partner with. So Indians, if you're paying attention, if you're in India, if you're an Indian policymaker, you need to be looking at yourself at the status you are going to achieve in the next 25 to 40 years, right? In the next 20 to 40 years, you will have a moment where Indian economy, both in purchasing power and both in other ways, will either get close to China or overtake China. Maybe in 40 years, 50 years. And at that point, you are the world's largest economy. You will be a target to maybe the United States. Maybe they don't like you, the fact that you are getting bigger and bigger, more powerful, and the Chinese may not like your strength. So you have to keep in mind, you need to keep strong strategic partnerships. Strong strategic partnerships come with either siding with the US or with the Russians, or finding a way to deal with both of them, not the French or the Brits. The French and the Brits are has-been countries. Sorry, their time is up. They're doing everything they can to self-sabotage their own economies. They're doing everything they can to sabotage their own. No, they have no, diplomatic future. Uh, they don't. They really don't. They think they are this powerful group of countries, but actually, there are about three or four countries with very powerful economies or bigger economies, like the UK, French, Germany, the Netherlands, better off. But then you have a whole bunch of other countries which are tiny economies, smaller, and increased EU will only make it worse for them. They just don't see it yet. So we Indians, if you're an Indian, and I'm a Belgian, I live in Europe, I can tell you this. So it's better for you to deal with the Russians. It's better for you long term to have strategic partnerships with the Russians. They will not care. They know, Indians and Russians know each other and have been longer friends than any other partnership. So you should continue to foster that. This doesn't mean you can't rely on France, but it doesn't add any competitive advantage. With the Russians, you are able to trade. You're able to. They will respect you. You will respect each other. It's not going to be like, oh, you are better than us, or we are better than you because we are democracy or something like this. No, we're not. Okay. So French are not serious. The UK is not a serious country. So it makes no sense for you to buy the Rafale. Rafale out. Yeah. 36, you bought 28 more for the Navy and that shit. It's not necessary. You will save money. I'm pretty sure 114 Sukhoi 30 MKI will be dead cheaper than 114 Rafales because you already have the factories. You just need to rejig, retool, adapt to new airframe and production techniques. And then starting from scratch, all about 114 Rafale for the French, who will charge you an arm and a leg for the fighter, and then they'll charge you an arm and a leg again for another, I don't know, 60% of the transfer of technology. And they're not giving you the source code. And every time you want to plug your own weapon in, you will have to pay them a lot of money. They will have to have this back and forth, like, okay, you are better than us. You want to put this weapon, but we have the AASM, the hammer. Yeah, but our weapon is cheaper and probably more effective. So that's my opinion today. I hope you enjoyed the video. You see, man, let you think. Okay, you need to think smarter. You need to ditch the Europeans. The Europeans are actually doing everything they can, and God help us all if Viktor Orban doesn't win this weekend. No, really, if you're in Europe and if you're cheering for Viktor Orban to somehow disappear and the new degenerates, wife beating degenerate, by the way, if you didn't know, Mr. Magyar, the wife beater, cocaine addicts, find out for yourself, will come into power and they'll say, okay, Orban is corrupt. Okay, I don't give a shit. Everybody in politics is corrupt. I would like the guy at least who knows the difference between a man and a woman and penis and a vagina. Okay, how about this? And try to keep that. These days, my baseline is very low, folks. As you can say, if you can tell the difference between a man and a woman, and you can understand that, kids are kids and they need to be left alone, protected, that for me is already a great benchmark, okay? Versus somebody who's actually a wife beater. Peter Magyar, go look at him, his history. He was beating his wife, and she divorced him very publicly. And there was a lot of drugs involved. So Hungarians, maybe you'll say the Europeans today. And this is the thing that I have with Europe, right? No, they've never, there's always these 28, 30 countries. That's the funny thing. I'm a European. I don't know all the EU nations anymore. Do you? Huh? Do you know all the European nations? And without Googling, don't Google. See, and which ones of them actually use the euro and which doesn't. I'll let you answer that. Anyways, put it in the chat. Let me see your knowledge. Huh? List all, list all the EU countries if you're a European, and tell me. Okay. So the Europeans have no real future. No. Who is investing in Europe? No. The only future that they want, Britain is actively preparing their people for war. Okay. Germany is stopping, and for those who don't know, Germany is stopping men between the age of 18 and 45 to report if they have to leave the country. And by the way, just so you know, so no, there is no future in Europe. Unfortunately, I'm sorry to tell you this. So Indians look for the Sukhoi 30, Sukhoi 57. You might do better off. This is just a money grab. It's a fine jet. Trust me, I've seen this several times. I've seen the Rafale in person at air shows and so forth. It's super capable, very nice. But buying from the French, useless, doesn't add any value. And then you are going to have to ask them, oh, look, they're worried about Brahmos integration. Bro, if I buy a weapon, I would like to integrate on it. Okay. That should be the first stance. And why should India pay more for this and waste time? Because these are all time wasters. Keep in mind, they wanted to have, they wanted this whole thing has been going since, if I recall the timeline, it's going since 2008. Okay, we're now almost 20 years later. Okay, so let's get this garbage over with. Okay, order this Su-57 and be done with it. They'll order 200 of them. Order the first 50 from Russia. They will send it to you within the next 3 to 4 years. And the next batch, you prepare your production for the next, 150, and make 200 of these. By 2035, by 2040, you should be able to have 200, 250 of these. If you wanted to, you can easily do that. And it will be, in my absolute opinion, I'm pretty certain of it, it will be cheaper than the Rafale. And it will have no issues functioning. Will there be technical issues? Sure. Will there be integration issues? Sure, absolutely. But you will not be fleeced at every given point, and you will not. Don't get me wrong. The Russians are very much capable of asking for more money. They've done this in the past. I'm not suggesting the Russians are not business oriented, but we can iron out our differences, and we already have these huge infrastructure projects that are already existing. You just need to switch some things. So that's my case for the for the Sukhoi 50, for 57 for the Indians. I don't think the Rafale adds any real value. What do you think? Put it in the chat. I've been following this long enough to know who to deal with, right? If you're the big dog, and one day you're going to be one of the top 4Gs on the planet, you already are the top 4Gs on the planet, right? So you have China, US, India, and Russia that have the world's largest economies for purchasing powers. Okay, you're already top four. You should not be dealing with the others. Who are the Brits and the French? Like, why would you buy anything Brits or French, especially military? Yeah, these countries cannot, like, they would struggle. The UK struggles to defend a simple town like Clapham. Okay, Clapham. They got Clapton, Clapham. Okay, so they're useless. Trust me. Okay, till they show evidence that they're getting better by actually making long-term strategic decisions, investments in nuclear, making peace with Russia, they are not worth it. No, it makes no sense. They do not have the competence to think forward. So this is my take. What do you think? Put it in the chats. If you like my videos, oh, come back, big boy. Okay. I appreciate your time. Thank you. Bye-bye.